أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ما شاء الله لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على فاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها بعدد ما حات به علمك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام اللهم صل على محمد بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي برسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام. قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له عزك بالله يا أبته من الضعف. فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به. فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. وما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل. صل على محمد. وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله. فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جدة يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء. فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوض قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين عليه السلام قد أقبل. اللهم صل على محمد. قال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني والثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جده. السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله وتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء. فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب اللهم صل على محمد. وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن أمي رسول الله. فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيء وخليفتي والساهب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء، ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبته يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بذأتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء، فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ برسول الله بطرف الكساء وومئ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن آداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وعذب عنهم الرجس وتحرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبتي هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى، يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تزن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وهي الله، إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لي أبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال نبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبين إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وهفت بهم الملائكة واستغفر لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي الثاني يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبين وفيه محموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا والسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أما بعد، قال الله الحكيم في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد كتبنا في الزبور من بعد الذكر أن الأرض يرثها عبادي الصالحون. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Tonight begins our journey, this journey of Wilayah, this journey towards Karbala and Sayyid al-Shuhada. As the moon of Muharram comes forth, there's a feeling in the air and there's a feeling in our hearts. It seems again things are changing. Hearts are moving. And today is your day. This is our time. And this is our time to change our destiny. Look, initially when we thought that this Muharram, these 10 days, were going to be virtual, for many people they asked the question, is it possible that we can connect without physically being there? And I thought of this, and I came to a conclusion that after 1400 years, we're at a unique position. This has never happened in the history of Tashayyu before, that the entire world of Tashayyu has been pushed away in such a way that they're confined to their houses. Yes, today, thanks to Jafaria Foundation, they've given me this room and one or two people are here with us. But the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of all of our communities across the world are in their homes. Does this mean Zahra is upset with us? That when the tradition says become one body and mourn for Sayyid al-Shuhada, after 1400 years we're not able to mourn? Actually, no. We have a huge opportunity now. We have an opportunity to bring the Imam forward in our lifetime. This is the final domino if we can utilize this properly. And if we can't, then Bada will happen and Allah will push this back again. Then in our lifetime we won't see this. I remember Ayatollah Bahjat saying that for one of the awliya, the time of Dhuhr is within our lifetime essentially. Because when he says that people older than you, there was a person who was 65 years old, older than you will see the Dhuhr, he finished off by saying, but pray that Allah doesn't change it. Today we have that opportunity, you know why? Because the actual philosophy is this. Remember one thing, this entire nation is revived because of these 10 days of Muharram. And now we're coming to that stage where we're not coming together. So you see, if any of our communities miss this energy of the 10 days, we're gone. The chain is broken because this chain is going all the way from Sayyidah Zainab to today. And if we're unable to mourn properly, the chain is broken. Outwardly, it seems that it's broken. Why? Because you've seen how it works online. You've got it switched on in your front room, people are running around, nobody's listening, no connection is happening. However, remember one thing. Hussein represents ishq. No more than that. Karbala is for one reason. And that one reason is this. To gladden the heart of Zahra. The only reason we cry for and we mourn, when people ask why do Shias cry, the only reason is this. Because that mother wants you to cry. Today, let me say to you something. Today we're not sitting in our Hussainiyas and Imam Bargas. Therefore each house becomes an Imam Barga Hussainiya. Remember this, you know what the adab is? Adab is this, that for the 10 days you have one room specific for Azaa. Put a black cloth or a white cloth on the floor. You don't have people to cry for you now. Now you have to cry in your house so that your children and your grandchildren see. Haqq of Azaa and crying is that you cry loudly. It becomes wajib on you now. You know why? Because now you're saving this deen of yours. You're saving Hussein's message. This is why it becomes wajib on you. You could pray like the Khawarij, but your prayers and your fasting and your hajj, nothing is accepted until you don't have wilayah. The biggest sign of wilayah are the tears that are shed for Sayyid al-Shuhada. Today your job and your responsibility is above and beyond everybody else's. Within history, your job now is above your parents, your grandparents and your great-grandparents. You know why? Because you're keeping this domino. Let me tell you something else. When your children come to the Masjid-e-Imam, when they come to this Masjid of Allah, when they come to the Majlis of Hussein, you may go outside because you know that somebody in the crowd is going to cry, your children are going to see, the effect is going to be there. Today you don't have that excuse now. Now you're in your homes and you're sitting there. It's your opportunity now. You must cry, you must beat your chest. Why? Because you have to transfer that. For that to take place, you have to focus. This is the time of focusing. Now imagine this, if just every household in Edinburgh or Aberdeen or London or Manchester or Maryland or Chicago or Florida or Sydney or Melbourne or Dubai or South Africa or Mombasa or Dar es Salaam, and wherever this voice is going to, if every household just takes responsibility for themselves, I promise you, who are you inviting? Zahra alayhi salam. If Zahra goes to every single house, then what happens? Inqilab takes place. Then you're ready for the 12th Imam alayhi salam. This is why this Muharram is important. If you can revive yourself, then know Dhuhr is close. And if you can't, 1400 years are broken. The chain is broken then. And we mustn't allow this chain to break. It is each one of our responsibilities now to take this message forward. It is mine and it is yours. We have to take this forward. How do we take this forward? Remember one thing. You know the most powerful thing you have? Your tears. You know why? Let me tell you something about your tears that you shed for Imam Hussein. If not for anything, listen to this. You see, it's because of human beings' sins that an Imam doesn't come. Why? Because the Imam is an Imam over the people. It's really because of the sins of the people that Sayyid al-Shuhada goes to Karbala. It's the sins of the Ummah. And trial and tribulation in our life befalls us because of our sins. When you do istighfar and you say astaghfirullah, it removes the sins in the hereafter. So it makes you clean in the hereafter that you go to Jannah. But in this world, a salat of sins are there. So your heart becomes darkened. Your heart becomes tarnished. And because of that, you have trial and tribulation. Know one thing. Tears for Hussein removes all of the stains from your heart. That for a person who cries for Imam Hussein, why has it been sent to you? Thursday nights, cry for Imam Hussein. Whenever you have musibah in your life, cry for Imam Hussein. If you're going through financial difficulty, cry for Imam Hussein. If your children are in problems, cry for Imam Hussein. If you're sick, cry for Imam Hussein. Why? Your tears that you shed for Imam Hussein are the very tears that remove the stains and the trials and the tribulation. This is the barakah of Imam Hussein. We haven't understood it. Imam Hussein doesn't need your tears, you need them. You need your tears. When that drop falls right, Zahra says Amin. You know what's required though? Marifah. This is why we fail, because we don't understand how precious we are. You don't understand what you've been given, the ni'mah that you've been given. This is the time. This is your time. It's our time. We have to focus. It's not ideal. It's not ideal. To sit, to stare at a camera is not ideal. To sit, to stare at a computer screen is not ideal. But you know what? Today's above that. It's about Hussein, and it's about the heart. This is why they say that there are some people sitting in a majlis of Hussein, that Hussein has his hand over their head. You know when you put your hand over your head, or somebody puts their hand over you, what does that mean? When you see a yatim, and you put your hands over their head, what does it mean? Why did Imam Hussein put his hand on the head of the daughters of Muslim bin Aqil? Because he's saying, you're not alone, you're not gharib. When Amir al-Mu'mineen was leaving this world, what does Imam Hussein say to Amir al-Mu'mineen? Why was he crying? Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Hussein, this time will go. Why are you crying for? He says, Father, when grandfather died, you were there to put your hand over our head. You were there to hug us. When our mother Zahra died, you were there to comfort us, put your hand over our head. Father, you're leaving this world. This is Kufa. There's no one here to put their hand over. They say that there's people who come to the majlis that Imam Hussein puts their hand over their head. You know who that person is? That's that person that when he comes to the majlis, he sits there for one reason only, and that is this. When the khatib or the dhakir says, Hussein, the minute he says Hussein, tears come into the eyes, tears begin to flow. You know what that is? Because special lutful Zahra's of you. She wants to eradicate all of your problems. She wants to eradicate all of your trials and tribulations. So look, today we begin this journey. Today this journey is the journey of Ishq. This is the time of enhancing the wilayah. And we've got a lot to go forward. We've got a lot ahead of us. We've got many days. But I want to say to you one thing. At this junction, say to you one thing. The entire markaz of Azaa is Zahra. Your Imam and Ma'soom. You have 12 Imam who are Ma'soom. Whenever they went into problems, Hadith is the Imam Hadi. What does he say? Ya Zahra. Sixth Imam is sick. Hujjat of Allah. He himself is sufficient, but he's teaching us something. You know what he says when his heart is breaking? Ya Zahra. Imam Hassan is poisoned. He's vomiting. What is he saying? Ya Zahra. Amir al-Mu'mineen in his ghurba at night time, tears are flowing in his eyes. He's saying, Ya Zahra. Hussein, Ashra day comes. On the floor, Shimmer is coming towards her. Who is he calling? Ya Zahra. Imam al-Zaman in Ghaiba. Gharib. What does he say? That Gharib also says Ya Zahra. So understand, why is Zahra so powerful? The reason is this. Because the hadith says, on Mi'raj, when Rasulullah goes on Mi'raj, Jibreel says, Rasulullah, I can't go any further than this. Sidratul Muntaha, comes up to the apple is awaiting him. When he picks the apple up, the hadith says a light shines, munawwar, shines in such a way that the entire alam al-mawara, alam al-nur becomes light. So Rasulullah in Hira says, he says, what is this? The reply comes, Allah says, this nur is from my nur. There's no wasila, directly from my nur. And this nur is the nur of Zahra. You know what Zahra means basically? Zahra is that person who lights up the emporium. And at that moment, the voice continues and it says, she is Fatima in this world, but Mansura in the hereafter. Meaning what? She will help all of her Shias. All of those people who cry for Hussein, on that day when you need her, she's Mansura. She comes and she helps you and she takes you to heaven. This is who you're here for. Who is Zahra, honestly? If we had time, if this was Fatimiyya, I'd go into detail. We'd talk about exactly who she is. Look, Allah's diamond face, continuously He's giving barakah, faiz, anwar, nur, everything is consistently coming. So when it's consistently coming, why does Allah, for example, or tradition is there, at Fajr time do dua? The last 1/3 of the night, if you want your dua to be accepted, do dua. Why does it say go to Hayr Hussein to do dua? Why does it say when you have tears in your eyes in the majlis of Hussein, dua becomes mustajab? Shall I tell you why? Because your acceptance of dua has to do with the connection with the hujjat of Allah. When the hujjat of Allah cries, that's when you cry and you connect. You think Laylatul Qadr is for you? It's better than 1,000 months. And what does it mean? It means one Laylatul Qadr is a lifetime of prayer. But that Laylatul Qadr is not essentially for you, secondarily it's for you. Actually it's for Hujjatullah. When you stay up the whole night, the milak is not staying up the whole night. The actual milak is this, the criteria is this. Why do you put your Quran on your head and you say, Bika ya Allah, bi Muhammadin, bi Aliyin, bi Fatima, all of the infallibles? Because you're connecting to them, their frequency. When you connect, that's when Laylatul Qadr becomes haqiqah for you. In the same way, you know the fastest and the most powerful thing that all of the Aimma do? All of them cry for Hussein. All of them cry. When the majlis of Hussein happens, who knows which Zain al-Aberdeen alayhi salam is sitting here? Who knows which Sakina is next door? You think that can't happen? Let me tell you of a majlis one Ashura day, only a couple of years ago. If your belief is there, it happens. One Ashura day a couple of years ago, many women claim to have seen who? They felt in their heart that right at the moment when the Dhikr talked about shimmer, it was as if a woman dressed in black came and nobody knew who she was. Don't think that this is a small thing. Today you don't know who you're inviting to your house. So therefore please, when the time comes, 7 o'clock comes, 8 o'clock comes, that you are sitting in Melbourne or DC or Virginia or Toronto, sit down. With your children, switch off your phone. Remember, Ishq has certain principles. It's above halal and haram. The reason why we're losing today, we're losing our children, we're losing this connection is because all we see is black and white. Ishq has its own principles. What is Ishq? Adab is required in Ishq. This is why I say, let the man who's crawling to Hussein crawl. Don't judge him. What do you know who he is? You don't know if that's Waliullah crawling towards Sayyid al-Shuhada. If a person's sitting there crying, let him cry. What have you got to do with his tears? If a person's rubbing their forehead on the dirt in the ground, let them rub it. You don't know what connection. It says, Adab, this is Ishq. Habib ibn Malahir teaches us that on the night of Ashura, when he comes, he picks up the dirt and he puts it in his head. He puts his head on the ground. He can't lift his head. You know why? Zainab is in front of him. He's teaching us a lesson. When one of the daughters of the Prophet comes in front of you, all you can do is put your head down. Allah teaches us this as well. Why does Allah teach us this? On Mahshar, when she comes, what is it? What is the hadith? It says, lower your gaze, Fatima bint Muhammad is coming. Lower your gaze, Fatima bint Muhammad is coming. See, these are the things. There is no halal and haram when it comes to ishq. Yes, there's conditions of halal and haram, but what I mean is it's not just black and white. You have to go above and beyond in this wadi. You have to go above and beyond in this valley. Why is it that Ayatollah Burujurdi once fasted for the entire year for? There's no halal and haram in him fasting the whole year. It's a condition that he made to himself. It's Ma'rifatul Ahlul Bayt. So look, today we just say one thing. Zahra alayhi salam, don't leave us on these nights. Send somebody so that we can be taken by the hand on these nights. For the sake of the pain that you have in your heart. What do you know what a pain of a mother is? What do you know what a pain of that mother is who raised her Hussein? Every time he cried, she would get up. What do you know when a pregnant mother sitting there in her loneliness and she's talking to that child and that child just says one thing, Ya Ummi, Ana Ghaib. Mother, I feel lonely. Ya Ummi, Ana Mazloom. Mother, I feel oppressed. Ya Ummi, Ana Atshan. Mother, I'm thirsty. What do we know? We don't know. This is why it's important for us. You know, I still remember that time. Still remember. Haram of Imam Hussein. Standing next to the Zari. Shuhada's mothers were coming. Iraq has given a lot of shuhada in the time of Daesh. When the mothers were coming, they were saying something very strange. They were saying this. They were saying, children, sons, today we're not going to cry over you. Why? Because your mother is alive. Today we're coming to cry over Hussein. Because Hussein's mother wasn't alive to cry over him. But when Zahra is there, her heart is Hussein. Her heart is Hussein. You know who Hussein is? Let me give you a tradition. Maybe you may understand who Hussein is. 3 things about Imam Hussein. 3 things about him. After he gave his life in Karbala, 3 things. Allah made Nasl Imamat through him. In his Nasl was Imamat. In his progeny was Imamat. There's a second thing as well though. He made the heart, the dirt of Imam Hussein, shifa. You know, they say when Mecca, Allah created Mecca and created the Kaaba, Mecca said to all of the lands, I'm the greatest. At that moment, Karbala looks up and says, no, I'm even greater than you. Says, why? Hussein's blood fell, it's gonna fall here. Karbala became Mu'alla. Let me tell you something about the Khak of Hussein. Some traditions it says even up to 2 miles is Khak Shifa. You know why? Hussein's blood was splashed all over. But the closer you go, the more asrat it is, right? The more powerful it is. The more powerful it is. I remember in Qom, one of the ulama had cancer. They came to Ayatollah Bahjat. They said, what should we do? He put his hand, took out a piece of khak of Sayyid al-Shuhada, put it in water, in a glass. He says, go recite, if you can do 70 times, alhamdulillah, if not 7. Take 1 teaspoon of it every day. That person is alive and fully well today. That is the Haqq of Hussein. Let me tell you something else about Haqq Hussein. 60 years ago or so, Ayatollah Abdul Karim Ha'iri, the founder of Hawza ibn Qum, they said that time in Qum there was an entire flood that came. The flood was so powerful that the water was rising all the way to the Haram. And they were worried that all the houses, the Haram, everything is going to be destroyed. So people went to Ayatollah Ha'iri. He says, you're the marja of the Shia. You've got to do something, otherwise Qum's destroyed. They say Ayatollah Ha'iri comes to the water. He had turbat of Hussein in his hand. He puts it into the water. They say every second the water began to go down, go down, go down. One Arif, Dulabi his name was, Marhum, says that you know what was being said? Karbala was saying, you don't have the right to show your anger. We have that right because Hussein was killed on our soil. Imagine. Haqq of Karbala is that powerful. But you know what else? Dua becomes mustajab when you go to Ha'ir Hussein. Under the zarih of Imam Hussein, dua becomes mustajab. Even the Imams would say, there's a guy by the name of Abu Hashim in the time of Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam. He says, look, you know, Abu Hashim, go to Karbala and pray. I'm sick, pray. He says, Imam ya Hujjatullah, you don't need me to pray. He says, no, Allah likes it. That doesn't mean that Imam Hussein's maqam is more than Rasulullah. Go to Kamil al-Ziyar, Sheikh Mufid's teacher, when he wrote Kamil al-Ziyarat, 400 pages are just for Imam Hussein, 100 is for the other 13 Ma'sumin. Why is that? Does it mean Sayyid al-Shuhada's maqam is higher than Rasulullah? No. Imam Hussein himself says, my judge's maqam is higher, my father's maqam is higher, my mother's, my brother's. This isn't about maqam. It's about what Allah likes. Hussein's test was such, Allah likes it. No other khaq. You can't even eat Rasulullah's khaq, but you can eat Karbala's khaq if you're sick. But let's say, let me ask you a question. Let's say you can't get to Karbala today. Look, everything is closed. What tragedy that everything is closed. We can't even get to Karbala. There's a huge dua. There's a huge problem. You want to go to Ha'ir Hussein. You want to do the dua. You can't do it. What do? Majlis of Sayyid al-Shuhada. I've seen Urafa, Ulama, Mujtahideen. When they have a problem, they recite Masa'ib of Imam Hussein Musibah. They put their hand on the ground because they know that this ground is linked to the ground of Karbala when the Majlis of Imam Hussein happens. And when those tears come in their eyes, you see them do dua. What do they say? Allah, we come to you with the wasila of that person who was slaughtered like a sheep was. Anything else that you have bigger than Imam Hussein? Look, this first night is about hope. Let me give you a story. About 40 years ago, a man from Bombay goes to Karbala. Now, in those days, some of the elders will remember even 40, 50 years ago, it's a long journey. And it was once in a lifetime, so you go to do all the ziyarats. It says, when he goes to Najaf, and he realizes the difference between Najaf and Karbala is only 80 kilometers. He goes to the door of Amir al-Mu'mineen, but he doesn't go in. He says, Mawla, I'm upset with you. 80 kilometers and you didn't come and help Hussein? When I say, Ya Ali, you come and help me, you couldn't help Hussein? He left. Didn't want to do ziyarah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Goes to Karbala. He goes to Qadamain after that. And Qadamiyya, he sits in his room and he thinks to himself, once in a lifetime, I've not been able to go to do the ziyarah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. I wish I could have done it. I don't even know if I'm going to live long enough to do it. You know what he says happened? He says there was a knock on the door, his hotel room. He says he opened the door up and there was a man standing outside. He says, who are you? He says, I'm the person who you wanted to do ziyarat of. Fell to the ground. He says, Mola, why? Why did you come? He said, because you went to my Hussein with ikhlas. But let me tell you, it was the mashiat of Allah that I couldn't go and help him. Otherwise, I was there. I was there when all of the Anbiya turned their backs. I was there when Rasulullah left. I was there when it was just me and Zahra. I was there when Shimr was walking towards Hussein's body. One story. Let me give you another one. Look, this is the time of istijabat of dua. For all of those people at home, you're sitting there, you're watching. Do dua. This is that time. May our homes become a place where the malaika come. Remember, Majlis of Hussein brings malaika. Let me give you this final story. Jaunpur is in India. Now I'm giving a lot of stories, at least two now, for India because many of the people watching will be from the subcontinent. In Jaunpur there was an old woman. Sometimes, you know, when I see an old mother, it breaks my heart. You don't know what pain that mother's gone through. She only had one son, her husband had died. Everything she put in that young man. Mother and son, from the 1st of Muharram to the day of Ashra, would give water to the Azadar of Imam Hussein. This woman, may Allah never see this, show anybody this. This woman's son died in front of her. Every day she would go at Fajr with a candle and she would put it on her son's grave. Because she knew nobody's there. Who's going to cry over my son? She would go, she'd put a candle there. When the night of the 1st of Muharram was coming, for the final time she goes to her son's grave. She says, son, from today onwards, for the next 10 days, I'm not going to come to your grave. Because of Hussein, I'm not going to come. And she leaves. 1st of Muharram, she's there giving water to her. Azadar of Hussein. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Ashura comes. On the 11th of Muharram at Fajr time, when she goes to the graveyard, she sees light coming from the grave of her son. When she goes there, there were 10 candles there. Now she looks deeper and she sees a woman dressed in black is sitting next to the grave. So what does this woman say? She says, Bibi, I think you're at the wrong grave. Woman replies, she says, no, this is the right grave. She says, Bibi, no, this is my son's grave, you're at the wrong grave. This woman replies, she says, for 10 days you remembered my son. I've remembered your son every single day. Haqq walidain is that when Muharram comes, you remember your parents who have left this world. Why? Because in Hadith it says parents can still disown you even after they've left this world. This is the time when your parents come and they say, now that our hands are empty, you do something for us. Dedicate even one tear. Even one tear. Hussein's feast is open. All you require is a tear. Go, take all of Jannah. Give a tear, take Jannah. Arif al-Bahaq is only for ziyarah of Hussein. Everywhere I've read, for tears of Hussein, you don't need to have ma'rifah. You can be whoever. These tears benefit you. Why? Because the tears build ma'rifah. The tears help you to understand what Ziyarat al-Hussein is. But for us, it's a build. We're building, we're moving. So look, 3 things I've covered, very briefly. One is Zahara. One is Sayyid al-Shuhada himself. One is your tears. But the greatest thing, remember, learn to connect with Zahra alayhi salam. This is why this majlis is here. You know why? Fast. That Noor comes. When the Noor comes, problems disappear. When Noor comes, difficulty disappears. When Noor comes, darkness disappears. Quickly. As the tradition says, it says when the angels were disconnected from the Noor, 7,000 years they were disconnected. And they say every time you go around the Kaaba once, symbolizes that 1,000 years of repentance. This is 7,000 years later, from the Arsh of Allah comes a kandil, a candle. The Noor, when it shines, angels go into sajda. Allah, what is this? Zahara. That which connects the angels back towards Allah is Zahara. But what does Zahara want? Safinat al-Hussein. Get on the ark of Hussein. Why? Because it's the widest, it brings everyone together. This is why. Fastest way of getting a dua answered, Hussein. Allah's made it such. Allah's made it such. Why? Hussein's sacrifice was such. Preserve this, move towards on nights like this. So look, let's mentally get into the right stage. Let's mentally now know that this is make or break for us. If we can utilize this time, what have we done? That domino that's required. If you're ready, if your tears have purified your heart, know something. Baqiyatullah alayhi salam is there. That's where you're going to now. Karbala to Imam Mahdi, it's a movement. Do you want to be part of this movement? Do you want to be part of this? Or do you want it to go another lifetime? No. It's our opportunity today to be part of this movement. One thing, and perhaps final thing for tonight. Look, I know it's difficult to just stare at a screen. Allah quickly removed this so next year we're together again as one body to mourn over Sayyid al-Shuhada. Tonight I'm sure mothers will be dressing their children up in black. Today your household changes again. Parents are saying to their young kids, let's get ready to mourn for Hussein. When you dress in black, when you prepare, you're lucky. There's no shimmer to stop you from preparing. There's no one to stop you from crying. For every time Sayyidah Zainab had tears in her eyes, you can imagine why Abdullah bin Ja'far falls onto the floor. You know the biggest test is? The biggest test is test of ghayra. It's the biggest test. Ayyub, Sabra Ayyub is famous. Allah says, Ayyub, you were so patient, I'm going to put him in the Quran. But you know what? Ayyub even raises his hands and says, Allah, that's it, I can't take it anymore. You know when that was? When his wife had to go to the bazaar and a man comes towards her. She runs back crying. Ayyub says, Allah, that's enough. I can't take it. Can you imagine what Imam Zain al-Aberdeen is? Imam Zain al-Aberdeen, your Mazaloon Imam. Somebody asked him, why do you cry so much? For he mentioned 2 reasons. He says, one reason I cry is because of Sayyidah Zainab going into the darbar of Yazid. Ali's daughter and a drunkard who would lift his finger up and point towards the daughter of Ali. Said, Mola, why else do you cry? What's the second reason? He says, when the children would say Al-Atash, my arms were tied behind my back, chains were tied around my feet, I had chains in my throat, spikes were going in. There was a 3.5-year-old girl, and she would come to her brother and say, brother, I'm thirsty. This is Muharram now, and we're going towards Muharram. See, final thing I'll say is this. Ibn Shabib, famous companion of the 8th Imam, comes to the 8th Imam and he sees the 8th Imam is crying. Tears are in his eyes, his tears are flowing, his beard is filling up with tears. So Ibn Shabib says, Mawla, what happened? He says, don't you know? He says, what? He says, tonight is the eve of the 1st of Muharram. He says, don't you know, tonight was that night when Zakaria was given a son. He fasted. For those people who don't have children, 1st of Muharram fast. Zakaria's dua became mustajab. Allah gave a child to Zakaria. Begins to cry, Imam. Ibn Shabib knows something. My Jad Hussein was slaughtered thirsty. He was thirsty. What did Imam Hussein say? He says, tell my Shia, whenever you have cold water, just remember my thirst. And Shia, if only you were here to see me when I was fighting all alone. If only you were here. Alone Hussein, Gharib Hussein fought. Old father fought. Imagine a father who's seen his son lying there. Imagine a brother who saw his brother's arms being chopped off. Imagine a father whose 6-month-old baby. The Imam would open up his top button shirt, take his amam off, go barefoot. He would cry. This is how Azaa's got to us. It's your 8th Imam, it's because of him. You know what's painful though? He says, Ibn Shabib, my father was slaughtered like a sheep is slaughtered. They say Ibn Shabib, startled, ulama have a discussion, what did Mawla mean by that? Like a sheep is slaughtered. You know what you do? You give water to a sheep before you slaughter it. Eid has just gone right. What do? You give water. Hajis would give water. Did Imam Hussein have any water? Thirsty Hussein goes into Karbala. They say that when you're slaughtering a sheep, make sure the knife is sharp. They say when Shimr was sitting on the chest of Imam Hussein, and he takes the amam and chucks it on the floor, and when he grabs Imam Hussein by the beard, the knife was blunt. But at the same time, you're told to remove any other sheep away so that they don't panic. They say Imam Hussein, when he was lying there 70 paces away, a sister was watching, and as she was watching, she looks into the maqtal and says, Anta akhi, are you my brother? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. For the sake of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, and Allah accept our worship today. Many people have asked for dua. Let's raise our hands wherever we are. Raise our hands and take a wasila. What wasila are we going to take? That wasila of that daughter of Amir al-Mu'mineen, who after putting all of the women on the camels was standing there alone. She was waiting for Imam Sajjad to come and to help her, but when she looked up she saw that her Imam was shackled, arms were tied, neck was being pierced, legs were tied. She looked up and she said, how can that sajjad help me? She says, but that sajjad in all of his pain comes forward and says, aunt. That aunt looks towards the maqtal. Ulama have narrated this. The first thing she says when she looks towards the Furad, she says, Abbas. For the sake of that moment, may Allah accept all of our du'as, all of our hajat, hasten to the hall of the Imam alayhi salam, and make us all part of his ansar. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin.
تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، کیسے دروازہ ہٹاؤں، کیسے محسن کو بچاؤں، سانس سینے میں رکی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، ہاتھ میں جس کے میرا ہاتھ دیا تھا تم نے، کہہ کہ من کن تو جسے مولا کہا تھا تم نے، میں نے ہر موڑ پہ بابا ساتھ اس کا ہے نبھایا، ہاں میرا جرم یہی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، تیری امت نے بنا دی ہے یہ حالت بابا، کوئی پسلی بھی نہیں میری سلامت بابا، سانس لیتی ہوں میں جس دم گھٹنے لگتا ہے میرا دم، صرف مرنے کی کمی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، کبھی دربار میں پیشی کو بلاتے ہیں ہمیں، کبھی دروازے پہ آ کے ستاتے ہیں ہمیں، میرے یہ پھول سے بچے پوچھتے ہیں یہی مجھ سے کیا خطا ہم سے ہوئی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، آئے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، شرم آتی ہے بلا تم کو بتاؤں کیسے، یہ تماچوں کے نشان تم کو دکھاؤں کیسے، تم نہ پہچان سکو گے، دیکھ کر مجھ کو کہو گے کیا میری زہرا یہی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، کیسے دروازہ ہٹاؤں، کیسے محسن کو بچاؤں، سانس سینے میں رکی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گری ہے، صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔